Jake, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position. My boss said flatly, clean out your desk by the end of the day. My name is Jake Wilson. I am 54 years old, and until that Monday morning, I was a senior systems analyst at Meridian Technologies in Columbus, Ohio. For nearly 2 decades, I had been the backbone of the IT department. From the old dial-up days to the cloud migration era, I carried this company through every transition. 3 CEOs came and went while I stayed. I trained every new hire, recovered every lost file, worked weekends and holidays, never asking for promotion or even a thank you. So when Daniel called me into his office and I saw Vanessa from HR already seated, I knew before he even spoke. The air had shifted weeks ago. I understand, I said quietly, nodding once. Then I walked out without another word. No anger, no pleading, just silent acknowledgement. Back at my desk, I felt the weight of glances from younger employees who quickly looked away, pretending to focus on their screens. Most of them were kids I had trained myself, bright, talented, but with no idea how deeply our systems ran or how fragile the architecture really was. None of them could navigate the custom software I had written or the credentials buried 3 layers deep. I began packing my things with calm precision. A family photo, the coffee mug my son made in high school, and a little cactus that had somehow survived 17 years of fluorescent lighting. Bethany from marketing stopped by, her face drawn with concern. Jake, I just heard. This is ridiculous. You practically built this place. I shrugged. Companies change direction. But after everything you've done, without warning, her voice rose, drawing attention. It's fine, I said softly. It was not fine, but I was not going to make a scene. As I walked out, Daniel stepped from his office to watch me leave. No handshake, no goodbye. Just making sure I actually exited the building. What none of them realized was that I had become the most critical person in the company. Not because I was extraordinary, but because I was thorough. I documented everything. I had built secure audit protocols for the legal team years ago during a scandal. I had off-site copies of it all. I sat in my car, staring at the 12-story building where I had spent most of my adult life. The security badge I had surrendered had been renewed 16 times. I started the engine and drove home. They had no idea. Wednesday would be interesting. I had been with Meridian since it was just 2 floors in a business park. Back then, my daughter Olivia was starting kindergarten. Now, she was finishing grad school. The company grew and I grew with it. I had turned down other offers because loyalty mattered to me. My wife, Andrea, used to joke that the servers were my second family. She was not wrong. I knew every system, every workaround, every hidden backdoor. The infrastructure I built survived 3 acquisitions and countless so-called innovations. Daniel became my boss 5 years ago, a young MBA type who called us IT resources instead of people. He loved buzzwords like digital transformation and efficiency. At first, I tried to help him understand the complexity of what lay beneath, but he never listened. 6 months ago, he brought in a consultant, Jason Phillips. Expensive suit, Stanford degree, flashy confidence. They whispered in conference rooms when I walked by. 3 months ago, I noticed my permissions being quietly downgraded. Small changes, nothing obvious. I didn't protest. I just documented. Andrea noticed I was distracted. Is everything okay at work? She asked one evening on the porch. I nodded, sipping my beer. Just changes. Nothing I haven't seen before. But it was different. I was slowly being cut out. Emails stopped including me. Projects were reassigned. And then I found a memo, a restructuring plan that placed Jason in charge of the IT department. My position? Gone. That same day, I noticed something odd during a routine security scan. Payments to a vendor called Apex Solutions Group. It was registered to a UPS store. Payments started small, but grew steadily each month. I made a copy and kept watching. Sometimes a quiet man in the corner sees everything, because no one expects him to. The morning after I was fired, I sat in my home office, staring at the silence. No alarms, no commute, just the heavy weight of what had happened. Andrea brought me coffee, placed it gently beside me, and left without a word. After 19 years of marriage, she knew when to give me space. Once she left, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a flash drive. Years ago, when I created the legal audit system, I had insisted on off-site backups. They signed off on it and promptly forgot. I plugged it in and started reviewing the files. Emails, meeting minutes, financial records. And there it was, nearly $1.8 million siphoned over 18 months. The approval chain led straight to our CFO, Brian Wilcox, the registered owner of Apex Solutions, his brother-in-law. It was fraud, plain and simple. For 17 years, I had been the reliable one, the man who fixed everything quietly. And now they had thrown me aside like outdated hardware. But instead of anger, I felt something colder, sharper, focus. My phone buzzed with a text from Stephen, a junior analyst I had mentored. Sorry about yesterday. Total BS. Phillips already moved into your office. I set the phone down. The pieces fit perfectly. Daniel and Brian needed me gone before anyone noticed the scheme. They thought the evidence would vanish with me. They were wrong. I started drafting an email to the board, but stopped. Too direct, too easy to dismiss as bitterness from a fired employee. I needed precision. Proof no one could ignore or cover up. Tomorrow was Wednesday, board meeting day. Quarterly reports. Bonuses. Perfect timing. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we had raised our kids. For the first time since yesterday, I smiled. Wednesday morning, I sat in my car across the street from Meridian's headquarters, watching employees stream through the revolving doors. In the passenger seat was my laptop, already logged into a hidden email account I had created years ago for security testing. An account that looked like it came from inside the company but was invisible to the main directory. At exactly 9:15 a.m., I made my first move. I sent an email to Daniel with a subject line, "Financial irregularities, urgent review needed." Inside, I outlined the Apex payments I had uncovered. I included just enough detail to be credible, but I left out the connection to Brian's brother-in-law. If Daniel was involved, he would panic. If he was not, he would investigate. Either way, I would learn something. By 9:45, my phone rang. Daniel's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message was terse. "Jake, we need to discuss your email immediately. Call me back." I did not. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop, set up my laptop, and waited. At 10:30, another email arrived, this one from Vanessa in HR. "Mr. Wilson, we received a concerning communication from you that potentially violates your separation agreement. Please cease all contact with Meridian employees and remember your confidentiality obligations. Any further communication may result in legal action." So that was their strategy: threaten, dismiss, isolate. The funny thing was, I had never signed any separation agreement. At noon, I drove to my bank and accessed my safe deposit box. Inside was another backup, older but critical. Among the files were my original security protocols, complete with detailed logs of who had access to what systems and when changes were made. According to those records, Brian Wilcox himself had requested expanded access to financial approval systems 18 months ago, the exact time the Apex payments began. Back home, I found 3 missed calls: Daniel, Vanessa, and now Jason Phillips. I had not expected Jason to get involved so quickly. Interesting. Checking my personal email, I saw a message from Stephen marked urgent. "Jake, they're saying you sent some crazy email about financial fraud. Phillips called an emergency meeting. Everyone's talking. They're pulling your access to everything, even old records we need to do our jobs. What's going on?" Poor kid, caught in the crossfire. I sent him a short reply. "Don't get involved, Stephen. Just watch." At 3 p.m., my home phone rang, a number I had not used for business in years. I answered silently. "Jake, it's Brian Wilcox," the CFO said, voice calm and measured. "We should talk about your concerns. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you call it?" I asked. "Look, Transitions are always messy. If you have questions about company finances, there are proper channels, like the board. I cut him off. The board doesn't need to be bothered with operational details, right? Why don't we meet tomorrow? Just you and me. We can clear this up. Sorry, I'm busy tomorrow, I said. Besides, I think the board will be very interested in Apex Solutions Group and your brother-in-law. The sharp intake of breath on the other end told me everything I needed to know. You're making a serious mistake, he said at last. We can make this right. Generous severance, glowing references, whatever you need. Goodbye, Brian, I said and hung up. Within 10 minutes, Vanessa emailed again. Suddenly, my severance package had doubled. Attached was an agreement requiring my total silence about company matters. They were scrambling. They thought this was an extortion attempt. They had no idea what was coming. Thursday morning brought clarity. I had stayed up all night, combing through years of data, connecting dots I had previously overlooked. The Apex scheme was not Brian's first trick. 3 years earlier, shortly after he became CFO, another suspicious pattern appeared. Payments to a firm called Lakeside Business Solutions. Different name, same game. Inflated invoices for services never fully delivered. The listed CEO? Patricia Wilcox, Brian's wife. The company had no website, no employees, and a virtual office address. But the bigger revelation came from the email archives. Daniel had not just known about these schemes. He had helped facilitate them. In exchange, his department received budget increases while others faced cuts. He had been brought in after the previous IT director started asking uncomfortable questions. Even Jason Phillips was tied in. His consulting firm had been hired through a suspicious process that bypassed normal procurement channels. His real purpose was not modernization. It was to eliminate me, the one person who could spot the fraud. The scheme was clever, not outright theft, but marked up invoices on legitimate services, just inflated enough to siphon millions without raising red flags. Over 3 years, they had diverted nearly $4.3 million. I gathered everything into a comprehensive report. Spreadsheets showing the inflated payments, business registrations linking the shell companies to Brian's family, and email chains proving Daniel's involvement. Then, I made a move they would never expect. I called Robert Chun, a board member I had worked with years ago during a security project. Semi-retired now, but still sharp. He answered on the second ring. Jake Wilson. Long time. Heard you left Meridian. Not by choice, I replied. Robert, I need 15 minutes of your time. It's important. Silence. Then, does this have anything to do with why Brian and Daniel looked like they'd seen ghosts at the board meeting yesterday? Probably, I said. He chuckled. Always figured you knew where the bodies were buried. Where can we meet? An hour later, we sat together in a quiet park 3 miles from headquarters. I handed him a sealed envelope containing a summary and a flash drive. That's everything. Dates, amounts, connections. I'm not looking for my job back. I'm not looking for money. I just want the truth to come out. Robert studied me for a long moment. Why bring this to me? Because you actually read audit reports. I've seen you ask questions no one else asks. He nodded slowly. There's an emergency finance committee meeting tomorrow. Convenient timing, Jake. If this checks out, there will be consequences. I'm counting on it. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Someone named Jason Phillips came by the house looking for you. Said it was urgent. I told him you were out. They were getting desperate. Good. That afternoon, 2 competing firms contacted me with job offers, both higher-level positions with hefty signing bonuses. Word had spread about my sudden availability. I ignored them. This was not about finding a new job. It was about finishing what they had started. That night, using credentials that should have been revoked, but were not, I accessed the company's email server one last time. Sloppy, Jason. Very sloppy. I scheduled an email to be delivered to every board member at 8 a.m. sharp. Subject: before you approve Q2 bonuses, read this. Attached was my full report. Friday morning dawned clear and bright. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up. No alarm, no commute, just waiting. At exactly 8 a.m., my scheduled email went out. By 8:17, my phone began to ring. Numbers I did not recognize. Board members' assistants. No doubt. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9 o'clock, the Emergency Finance Committee meeting began. Robert Chin was there with my documentation in hand, watching their faces as my email appeared. At 9:32, Stephen texted me. Police are here. Wilcox and Daniel are being questioned in conference rooms. Phillips looked sick. What did you do? I smiled at the screen. I did not reply. By 10 a.m., the wheels were turning exactly as I'd expected. Meridian's general counsel called. Unlike the others, I actually answered this one. Mr. Wilson, this is Patricia Graves from Legal. We need you coming immediately to discuss the information you provided to the board. I'm available by phone, I replied. This really requires an in-person discussion. No, it doesn't. I interrupted, keeping my voice calm. Everything I know is already in that report, and everything I have is backed up in multiple secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, additional copies go straight to the SEC, the IRS, and 3 major news outlets. Silence. Then, carefully measured, Mr. Wilson, the board is taking this extremely seriously. They've already placed several executives on administrative leave pending investigation. They would appreciate your cooperation. I've already cooperated, I said evenly. I provided complete documentation. My part is done. After she hung up, I drove 20 miles outside Columbus and settled into a small diner. No reason to be easily found today. Over lunch, the news broke. Local business sites lit up with headlines. Meridian Technologies executives under investigation for financial irregularities. No names yet, but those would come. At 2 p.m., my phone rang. Robert Chun. It's a bloodbath, he said without preamble. Brian confessed the moment we confronted him with your evidence. Tried to cut a deal, blaming Daniel for pressuring him. Daniel's denying everything. Phillips claims he was just a consultant. No knowledge of financial matters. The board isn't buying it. All 3 are suspended pending further investigation. Forensic accountants come in Monday. Early estimates suggest $4.5 million diverted over 3 years. Could be more. I nodded to myself. I'd been close. The board wants to talk to you, Robert continued, about coming back, not just to your old position. They're creating a new chief security officer role, reporting directly to the board. I had anticipated this possibility, but still, it caught me off guard. I'll think about it, I said. That evening, I told Andrea everything. She listened silently, then asked, What do you want to do? Good question. The revenge part was complete. The people who had forced me out were now facing criminal charges. Justice had been served, cold, precise, and undeniable. But going back to Meridian meant returning to the place that had discarded me after 17 years of service. Could I do that? Did I even want to? I need time to decide, I finally said. Later that night, I opened my laptop and posted a single message to my otherwise dormant LinkedIn profile. Never burn bridges. Just let them collapse under the weight of their own greed. Within minutes, former colleagues started reaching out. Word was spreading. The quiet systems guy had just brought down 3 executives without raising his voice. By Monday, everyone would know exactly who they had underestimated. Monday morning, I walked into Meridian's headquarters wearing a suit I hadn't needed in years. The security guard did a double take before quickly printing me a visitor badge. Welcome back, Mr. Wilson, he said, this time with respect. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent. I'd never had reason to visit this level before. Now, I was expected in the boardroom. 10 board members sat around a polished table. Robertson gave me a slight nod. The interim CEO, formerly the COO, looked uncomfortable. Mr. Wilson, she began, thank you for coming. The situation you brought to light is unprecedented. The full extent of the fraud appears worse than initially reported. The forensic team has identified nearly $5.2 million in diverted funds. Criminal charges are being prepared. I stayed silent. Robert cleared his throat. Jake, the board has unanimously voted to create a new executive position. Chief Information Security Officer. Full executive privileges. Reporting directly to the board. We'd like to offer you the role. I set a folder on the table. Inside, you'll find my conditions. Non-negotiable. The CEO opened it and scanned quickly. Her eyebrows rose. Full audit authority across all departments. Independent budget. Veto power on financial technology decisions. I nodded once. This is unusual, she said. So it was embezzling $5.2 million. I replied, that happened because no one was watching. Now someone will be. The room fell silent. You have until noon, I added, standing. I have other offers. As I reached the door, Robert called out, Jake, did you plan this all along? I paused. I didn't plan on being fired after 17 years. Everything after that was just me doing what I've always done, identifying system vulnerabilities and implementing appropriate security measures. At 11:47, they called, every condition accepted. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office overlooking the Columbus skyline, reviewing security protocols for the upcoming quarter. The view was a daily reminder of how much had changed. Brian Wilcox had pled guilty, trading cooperation for a reduced sentence. Still significant. Daniel was fighting the charges, insisting ignorance despite the evidence. Phillips had fled to Brazil, but was being extradited. Most of the money had been recovered, enough to prevent serious financial damage. My former team now reported directly to me, though I promoted Stephen to run day-to-day operations. The kid had potential. He just needed someone to see it. A knock at my door. Andrea stood there, smiling. Ready for lunch? I nodded, grabbing my jacket. As we walked through IT, conversations hushed briefly, not out of fear but respect. They knew what had happened. They knew I could have destroyed the company, but instead, I'd saved it. In the elevator, Andrea squeezed my hand. Happy, I considered. The anger that had driven me in those first days after being fired had faded. What remained wasn't quite happiness, but something steadier. Satisfaction. Completion. I'm good, I said. Outside, the October sun warmed our faces. My phone buzzed with a message from Robertson. Board approved your security budget increase. Unanimous vote. I smiled faintly. No arguments. No questions. Just trust. Andrea noticed my expression. What is it? Nothing, I said, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse under their own weight. Others, once repaired, become stronger than ever before. This time, I'd built the bridge right.